Slowly, when I started delivering, people used to be shocked that you're an IITian and you're delivering plants, kind of a thing. And here was a guy who was talking about going to Silicon Valley, starting his own company on shared computing, because in the 80s and all, it was not very common. The moment you're able to remove status and just realize that you're going to die anyways, you just kind of, it opens up your world. What is it that made that Tata's been having a 3-generation business in which businesses have done well? I went into FITGI largely because they gave me 100% scholarship. Post there, I went to IIT BHU. Second year was the first time that I kind of heard what entrepreneurship is all about. If I became an engineer, then I'd probably be an engineer. But if I became an entrepreneur, I could start a sarika business, I could start a tech business, or I could start a revolution. The basics would be the same. It's all about that how can you increase your circumference of luck. I was considering quitting college altogether. I think that is what will separate a good leader from a great one. Somebody told me that B2B is the toughest sales you can do. So I said, then so it's perfect. My perspective from the corporate job was always that how much do I need to learn to start my own business.
Hi, welcome to the Unlocking Journeys podcast. इस पॉडकास्ट के थ्रू मैं हर वो आदमी तक पहुंचना चाहता हूं जिनमें कुछ बड़ा करने का पैशन हो, जिनमें वो जुनून हो कुछ बड़ा इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट करने का। इसमें हम होस्ट करेंगे उन लोगों को जिन लोगों ने अपने अपने फील्ड में कुछ बड़ा किया है, और उनके जर्नीज से हम ये सीखेंगे कैसे हम भी उनके जैसे एक बड़े मुकाम तक पहुंच सकते हैं। सो कम, लेट्स अनलॉक देयर जर्नीज टुगेदर। टुडे वी आर होस्टिंग Rohan, who is the CEO of Kobe. Kobe helps creators all across the globe to monetize their offerings. They have 300,000 downloads in the App Store and 150,000 creators on their platform. Their traction was so phenomenal that Google Play Store awarded them as one of the best apps in 2022. Just to give you a sense of how big of an achievement it is, Google Play Store received 100,000 plus apps registered on their platform in October 2022 alone.
Hey, hi Rohan. Welcome to the podcast. With your journey, we want to understand how you went from a very humble beginning to starting your own and building a team and growing your company, and want to go in details of your childhood and then how you went up to in 11, 12 and then in college and after that. So with this, I think our young listeners, especially young listeners, will actually learn a lot from your journey and think of at least taking a plunge at entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much, Ankit, for having me here. I think despite the humble background, one thing that I've had in abundance is the support of parents. So hopefully, if there are any parents also listening, they'll see that what sort of parenting can make a difference, right? Of what somebody turns out to be. So my father is a banker. He was, and not the kind of flashy banker that you might see. He was in a government bank, right? And my mother was a homemaker for a while I was young, and later she became a teacher at a school. Then she became a principal of a college, and right now she runs Sri GPM Degree College, which has got about 2,000 students in Andheri, Mumbai. So that's basically a little bit about my background. We come from a family that, so I don't know if you know about this or not, but there's a caste of people called Kayas who worship books and all. So it was like always said to me that, we don't have a lot of money to give, but there's one thing that we will not shy away from spending in, it would be education. So that was basically the beginning of my teenage life, in which my parents again and again grilled this that the only way that you can probably make a mark would be via education, and that was something that was repeatedly told. And I don't think education per se was just key academics is the only thing, like you can only become a doctor, PhD or something, but more like that whatever you will achieve will be through your own hard work. Like there's nothing that's going to be given to you. And I think that has been a blessing in disguise because of a couple of factors. Like you don't have anything weighing you down, and you can just kind of start into anything. And whenever you build something, then people really look up to you ki theek hai isne khud se kiya hai, and stuff like that. So I went into FITGI largely because they gave me 100% scholarship. So that made my decision very, very easy. Amongst all the places, that is where I would go. Post there, I went to IIT BHU, which is Banaras Hindu University in Varanasi. And second year was the first time that I kind of heard what entrepreneurship is all about. And we had a Malviya Center for Incubation, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship, which is MCIIE. And that is where I saw one or two startups. There was Intern Lelo, and then there was a couple of more startups. There was the Y Lelo also, in fact, which was later acquired by 1MG. So college time say I could see ki people are starting companies and some of them are even getting acquired. Yeah, that was a very fun thing to watch. And that is where my interest into entrepreneurship kind of really started. I used to be into dance for my second year, but when I was kind of auditioning for going to the inter college fest, the seniors did not take me. So I was like, fuck it, I'm not gonna go. And the same day, I had given an interview for an internship at one of the startups that was at CIIE, and I decided to pursue that.
Nice, nice. So this is third year of the college, is it?
So this was in second year of college. Interestingly, in second year of my college, one of my college, so basically my roommate had started coding and he was working on the back end of their website and all. So he's the one who introduced me. And my first internship was to write articles. And I used to always love writing. And somebody said that you could be paid to do it. So I just really loved that and I started doing it.
Nice. So what I can see is in your first few years of your college, you actually explored multiple things, which is something I think very good learning for the listeners as well, that you should explore a few things when you have this good time in your college, right? But yeah, it's not like you sleep all day, but at least take a plunge at everything and give it a shot.
You really miss all these things later in life when you realize if we have to go for a concert or something, right? We are paying 2,500, 3,000 bucks. And over there, these people used to come, these people there used to be such great people coming and doing talks there. And, concerts would be there. And many a times I would be like, kya karu मैं जाके? Like, what's the point? Like, I would rather not go. But recently, like just right now, IIT Bombay was having their fest right in the last days of December that they do. And I went to Sunidhi Chauhan's concert and I was like, damn, this concert is lit. And these guys are getting in for free. I also got in for free because I used somebody else's ID card and all. But that is something that I think we really cherish it after we go out of college.
Nice. So how did your third year, fourth year go? Like, what are the kind of experiences you had in those times?
Right. So our college was in Varanasi, and that had the misfortune of being very, very sort of cut off from the world. Right. So we did not have as many people coming as we did in IIT Bombay or Delhi. So my interest was in entrepreneurship after second year. Like I was very, very enthused. I was like, these guys are coming into newspapers and people are talking about building a company. And I didn't believe that you could build a company. I believed that you got in as an engineer and 40 years later you were possibly the CEO, or 20 years later you were possibly the CEO. I didn't know that you could start new companies. And also, what I understood was that the basics of entrepreneurship are the basics for any sort of work that you have to do. Like, you can be entrepreneurial in anything you do. Like, at that point of time, I was reading Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography. And if you have to organize a Dandi March, right, you have to do marketing, you have to connect with the customer's problem, you have to set up some events in which people believe in you. It's all marketing, right? It's all marketing. And I was able to look at the world from a particular lens. If I became an engineer, then I'd probably be an engineer. But if I became an entrepreneur, I could start a sarika business, I could start a tech business, or I could start a revolution. The basics would be the same. So I kind of felt that as very invigorating, right? Like if you could connect with people and you could understand the world from that entrepreneurship lens, that completely changed my way of thinking, that the world could be so much more broad than either you can be an analyst or a consultant. Like non-tech jobs were like analyst or consultant. I was like, damn, that's limiting, right? So that was it. And very interestingly, we used to have people like Sunil Handa, who is from IIM Ahmedabad. He's also mentioned in the book Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish that was published. He started his own pharmaceutical company and his story is very well completed. And he would come and talk. Interestingly, one such talks, I went over there and this was a huge sort of hall and there were hardly 20 people sitting there. out of which 10 people were the organizers, like the older guys. And here was a guy who was talking about going to Silicon Valley, starting his own company on shared computing, because in the 80s and all, it was not very common. Shared computing, and he sold it for $300 million in those times, right? In the 80s. And he was pretty calm about it. But the organizers were from MCII. These were slightly older guys. And they were shouting back on us ki such an amazing personality is here and nobody comes to here, etc., etc. And we were looking at each other, hum pe kyun bol rahe ho? Like, hum to aaye hain, we've come. And that too out of our own will. One of the 10 guys was Shashwat Aditya, who is my co-founder now. 2014, I'm attending an event. There's only 10 guys over there. And I find my co-founder, whom after which I'm working, 8 years later. So I think what you just said about you should go out and explore. I think it's all about that, how can you increase your circumference of luck that, you get lucky.
It is very important that you said. I actually took a few pointers out of it. So one is in college and like before that, people are actually very limited. I think even after that, people are very limited in what they actually try out and go out. They're in their comfort zone and then the laziness creeps in. But if you go and explore these things, then in future, like as you said, the dots connect and you get to network and meet a lot of people and they do brilliant in their life. So that's one. Second is, as you said, that in entrepreneurship, it's more about problem solving and whatever tools you require, whatever knowledge you require, you'll have to gain that knowledge, regardless of analyst or engineering or marketing or whatever it is. So it's very broad. It's a all-in-one thing. It will give you a strength of starting your own anything. Like you don't have to be dependent upon some other company to get a role or anything. It's very enriching journey in that way. It will give you strength, inner strength of even if I don't get into big companies, it's fine. I can just start off my own, right? Especially in these times when there are a lot of layoffs. I'm super surprised when I see people, even in big companies like Google and everything, they work for 5-10 years and they get layoff and they are so depressed. I'm like, you are so talented. Why can't you just start of your own? Why do you have to be depressed after 5-10 years of experience? So that's interesting. So after that, how did you transition from your college life to the corporate life, and how was it different for you? What was the journey look like?
So, in second year, I started a company called Plantly with Shashwat Aditya, in which we used to deliver plants all across Varanasi, and people could go. So the problem statement was that, these nurseries had to pay really high rents to be inside the city, and their revenue per square footage was not much. So they had slowly in every city, the nurseries were shifting outside of the city limits. So we said there should be a website wherein you can read about these plants, you can order some, and we would have to build some sort of a logistics network that can bring plants from the nurseries. Because especially if you want to buy the good ones, right? Like if you want to buy a palm or something that costs a little more expensive, you're gonna find all of that at the edges of the city only, and the margins were great. So while discussing this problem set, me and Shashwat Aditya, we started working on it. I would basically, and what I made my USP was that you would get colored pots, which was not available in Varanasi. It's a very interesting story. Like there was a village nearby. I would buy a lot of pots, and I would come back to the college, and I would have these hundreds of pots kept, and I would buy some paint and I would just paint it myself. Like if you find my college jeans, all of them have paint on it. So I would paint these plants, and then I would kind of get send it back to the nurseries, and whenever I would get an order, I would kind of do this. Slowly, when I started delivering, people used to be shocked that you're an IITian and you're delivering plants, kind of a thing. So sometimes they would invite me inside and have make me have chola puri and make me talk to their sons and daughters कि देखो भैया को देखो भैया ने कैसे IIT crack किया, just talk to him or something. Like they would do all of those things. So I had a really fun time. I actually thought that I would do Plantly full time. I was considering quitting college altogether because the business was taking off, and it was in Mumbai also we had started. While instead of doing an internship, I had an internship, but I didn't go. Instead, I decided to set up Plantly in Mumbai during my summer vacations. So at the time, I felt like this is what I would do, but the logistics was a big issue. Like, plants would break basically, and it was a logistical nightmare. So I decided to quit it just 6 months before the placement happened. And I was actually of the opinion that, if this placement does not work out, it'll be a blessing in disguise and I could go back to my business. Like, it was a bit like this. So when I sat down for the placements,
I'll
uh,
stop you at this. Sorry to stop you at this point. I want to actually take out some learning out of this for our listeners. What I saw is an IITian which is well respected in Indian society. The hustle in you is like taking you to go at door to door and selling it. And generally, people, because of their status in the society, they don't take these kind of thing as a well-respected job, which is very bad in the sense because then they are super restricted in what they can do. So it's very important to be very down to earth and respect everything. Like whatever needs to be done, regardless of where you are in your strata of the society. So this is one key learning which I got from you, and I want to actually address this to all the students who are there in some very good premium college. So yeah, you can continue.
I think that is what will separate a good leader from a great one. If you read any of these, like, I didn't think that, this is what I have to do. Like, it didn't occur to me. I was reading a lot of books in which I was seeing that the best founders had spent a lot of time on ground. If these were people who were making clothes, they were spending a lot of time on the factory floor. If it was Ratan Tata, he spent years on the factory floors of Tata Motors. Like, imagine this, right? You're Ratan Tata. You've got the entire business already built. Like, what the hell do you even have to do? But he spent years on the factory floor. And if he hadn't done that, I don't think Tata Motors would have done what it did, because we have the intelligence. We just need to get the experience and the empathy. I just completely, this sounds a little superfluous or whatever, but I really think that, I kind of go back and I also read about the kings and all. What was great, like I talk about this with Shashwat sometimes, ki what is it that made that Tata's been having a 3 generation business in which businesses have done well? Because let me tell you, there's a lot of people who built out great businesses and their next generation fails, right? It happens all the time. So I kind of talk about this, that how were the Mughals able to do it for 5 or 6 generations, right? I really resonated when I see in the movie Jodha Akbar, Akbar going to the streets and trying to understand what is happening with the people. And the more you separate yourself from them, the less you will understand them. And the less you understand them, the less you will be able to serve them, because your job is to serve them. So I think I read all these books, and that is how I was able to break that. When it comes to the status part of things, only recently I've realized that status is usually a roadblock. The moment you are able to remove status and just realize that, you're going to die anyways, you just kind of, it opens up your world.
True. Yeah, I can very well resonate to it. Let's go from your placement to your corporate journey. What did you learn there? How was it different from college and around that?
Right, right. So I think an important story, like many people would be preparing for placements. So I have only given one interview in my life, which was for my first placement, and that's it. In that interview, like, I was the first guy from my batch to get a job, and I saw people failing interviews back to back to back to back to back, and really crushing their confidence. I think one thing that was very different for me was when I sat into the interview room, I was like, I don't need this job. I want to go back to Plantly and I want to do that. So what I had just done well was I had done my research on Oyo's business model really well, which was my first job. So when I sat over there, I was just curious that, like, I remember the first time I sat in that interview, we were discussing about Oyo, and I was like, I think this is what I understand about the business model. If it's any different, tell me about it. And he just went on to tell me a little bit about the business model. I said, but I have a problem here. I think your PR is not very well. I said, I searched for Oyo's business model today, and the fifth article was about how Oyo has ruined customer experience. I said that, so he just started explaining himself, you know what, we've grown from 500 to 5,500. So some lakhs are going to happen. I'm like, that's absolutely going to happen. And you will take a long time to fix it. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying that you've raised $300 million. hire some good PR people, right? Like it's not rocket science to have Ritesh Agarwal give more interviews and get that article down on the third page rather than on the first page. It's not rocket science, right? I could do it for you. So that interview just became a discussion on, what all things there are. In fact, he asked me a brain teaser, which I totally gave the wrong answer to, but it didn't matter because it was just like I was talking, okay, where do we want to go?Here can I help? Etc. 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 I didn't want the job. I was just curious about how I could help. So post that, I got selected. I in fact went back to sleep. I was so stupid. They had taken my interview the first, and I was like, tomorrow I've got a 8 p.m. interview. If these guys need me, they will call me back. So I just went and I slept, and everybody else was waiting in their suits and all for the results. So at 3 a.m. in the night, the results came and they had selected me as one of the 6 people to go over there. And I had gone back to sleep. So there's somebody knocking on my door at 3 a.m. in the night saying that, hey, they've selected you. They want to sign the offer letter. And they had brought with this was a very Oyo thing to do, to bring a 50,000 rupees ka check. That if you join us, you get a check. And nobody else was getting a check, right? In the last year of college, you get 50,000 rupees. Like it's crazy. And I'm like, let's do it tomorrow morning. They're like, no, they've got a flight at 7 a.m. So I went back in my, chappal and jeans, and everybody else is standing there in their suits. And I basically signed it, and that's how it happened. My job was more around, I went to Kolkata and I was looking over the Oyo East business. I was the analyst. So I worked directly with the region head to look over the business between Bhubaneswar to Lucknow. So that entire belt of East was under us. I did all the numbers, did all the calculation, worked really, really hard, got very good at analytics, Excel, Python, everything I was good at. But I was really, really terrible with people. Like in the sense, I could just point that this guy is doing well, this guy is not doing well, but I would not understand why. And sometimes I would be wrong because this guy would be fudging the numbers. Like if I saw a lot of bookings, I said, okay, great, this guy is doing well. Whereas there was a lot of shitty things that happened on the ground level. So my boss, Asit, tried to send me to a lot of these things to, go and see how things are happening. But I had this, like, I don't know why, but once I came into corporate, I was not carrying the same level of let's go on the ground and figure things out as I did in my own business. And I saw the burnt of it because I would be really great at my job, but I would just not be great with solutions. Like I would give solutions that would fail at the ground level because I had not understood the hotel industry well enough. My boss said one thing which really stayed with me. So after 1 year of working, actually about like 8 months of working or so, he said, you're great, you're brilliant or something. But I think your first job should have been in sales. I said, why is that? So he said, you can't really understand business very well. And we are basically running a business, right? We're not running a research organization until you've done sales. And 4 months later, I just told him that, I'm going to leave this job because I want to go do sales. I think that is where my status problem was a bigger problem because I was not earning a lot. I was earning like 66,000 rupees per month over there. And I was going to go join a startup to do sales for 30,000 rupees. So for me and everybody else was getting a hike during the same time because we had been hired for too low and they had to increase packages. They were increasing packages like crazy. And during the same time, I quit to join that 30,000 rupees job because they were a smaller team of 20 people and they were doing business to government business. Basically, we used to create 3D maps, which we used to sell to the government. So somebody told me that B2G is the toughest sales you can do. So I said, then so it's perfect. If I have to go learn sales, might as well go learn it over there. So that is how I think my perspective from the corporate job was always that how much do I need to learn to start my own business? When 10 months later, I had realized that my learning curve has kind of started to curve a bit, I decided to switch things.
I hope you liked the pre-Kobe journey of Rohan and you must have learned something that you can apply to yourself. We'll be releasing the next part soon. My team puts a lot of effort in getting such kind of content to you. So if you like this, please like, subscribe, and comment at least one thing that you learned from this.